This is the Troutbitten podcast.
Troutbitten.
Troutbitten?
Troutbitten.
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 Yeah, Troutbitten.
Troutbitten.
It's about trout. Wild trout. This is Troutbitten.
This is the Troutbitten podcast, and thanks for tuning in. My name is Dominic Swantowski. I'm the owner of Troutbitten and the author of Troutbitten.com. All right, here we are. It's our second episode of season 15, and I just want to say thank you sincerely to everyone out there listening who supports this Troutbitten project, the whole project. Also, thanks to the guys joining me here tonight, not only for these podcast discussions, but for being part of the whole thing in so many ways. A big thank you goes out to our show sponsors as well. You guys here, we work with some of the best companies in the business, and all of these brands make products that we love and we use every day. If you hear or see an ad across the Troutbitten project, whether that's podcasts, videos, or articles, you know it's a product or a brand that we stand behind. So tonight, we have a topic that starts with a really interesting question. Well, I think so. What puts more trout in the net? Is it knowing your water or knowing your tactics? Now, of course, the easy answer here is both. And that's certainly true. Yes, refine your skills and learn your rivers. Then put all of that together and you have a great formula, not only for catching trout, but for having a lot of fun out there. But the truth is, as frequent anglers, I think we're always involved in improving ourselves. It goes way beyond filling the fly boxes with new patterns, and we kind of know our deficiencies, and we're working to fix them. Or at least we're trying to. We also know you can only really tackle one thing at a time. So if you're out there fishing, or maybe even on the way to your next fishing trip, what are you working on? Really, what will put more fish in the net? Is it better to focus on the tactics and the techniques, or is it better to learn the river itself? And by that, I think basically that kind of means reading water better and finding fish better. So we're looking forward to this discussion, and it's a pretty cool concept. I know we'll have a lot to say with some differing opinions. That'll be good. So the Troutbitten crew is here with me tonight. Let me introduce my best fishing buddies one at a time. Here's Austin Dando. Missed you last week, buddy. How you doing?
Hey, now, good. Sorry to miss the stocked trout episode.
What would you like to say about stock trout fishing? You have a pointer that we missed?
You really like them.
Me?
Yeah.
Did you listen to the podcast?
No, I didn't.
No, not yet.
Just came out today.
Yeah, it's true.
You gotta give me a minute.
I do like them, in a way. Not as a primary thing, but as a change-up.
No, I feel like it's primary.
It's the old
I
change-up.
feel like it's primary.
He just likes to eat them.
I do. I had a friend today, James, who got in touch and said, hey, you want to be careful about eating those because there's like, what do they call it? Like forever chemicals in, you know what I mean? It's probably in a lot of things we eat, but especially,
yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Yeah. There's
Probably
like
in the wild
plastics and
ones
stuff.
too.
Yeah, and we know the mercury's there and all that. We even talked about that last week in the podcast. Austin, do you ever keep trout? We ever talk about that?
Not really. So I don't really enjoy the taste of fish very much. There's a few species of fish that I enjoy, and it's salmon and tuna, and that's kind of
I'm in that boat.
kind of where it stops. I don't love the taste of other species
Have you
very
had-
often, so
have you had
I don't have much
mahi-mahi?
incentive to keep them. Yeah, I do like that. Maybe those are similar tasting fish in some ways, but generally, no, I don't like to keep trout to eat.
I like a mahi-mahi fish taco, Bill.
That's yeah, those are good.
Right.
A little bit of
That
heat in
doesn't
them.
really count. Anything's good in a taco.
Well, and you can bread trout. We were talking about it last week and fry it, and it's pretty darn good too. We should have a fish fry with stocked fish, just stockies. We'll fish fry it
Ugh,
with
it
the
sounds
stockies.
stinky.
It won't be.
I don't like your forever chemical bullshit.
That's true. And James made a really good point. And I also didn't mean to make it sound last week like we're eating a ton of them, every month. It's kind of this time of the year I keep probably a dozen fish. Or I mean, I might consume a dozen fish within
A week, a day.
No,
That's a
within
good
couple
amount.
months. Within the spring,
That's
you know
why,
what I mean?
that's why he lost his tooth last year.
Mercury melted
He's
That was
eating
more
too
away.
many stockies.
That was more than 2 years ago. I finally got my fake tooth planted up there for permanently last year, a year later. Gosh, what a process. I
Better
look back on some
springs,
old
man.
videos on the YouTube. Yeah, right. I looked back at some old videos. I hate doing that. Some of our old YouTube stuff. And I'm like, man, you can tell I got my fake tooth, or I can tell I got my fake tooth in there. There's one video that's actually really popular. I won't even name it because everybody will go look at it and like screenshot it and make fun of me. But you could tell, I can tell. We tried to like film my face in some shadows because I didn't have my fake tooth in there because of the process I was in.
Some summer taste going on.
Yeah.
It's better than chewing gum.
What's that?
Remember the first? Go back and watch the first video.
Oh yeah.
When you chew gum.
That was the most prevalent comment. The most.
Quit off the gum, bud.
Yeah. Oh my. People beat me up about chewing gum. And that's a fair point. And so I've hardly done it again. Since. I did a fish and film the other day, and well, I don't think it matters that much, but from a distance, you could tell I was chewing gum, and I was like, well, I'm noticing that right now myself. Somebody will beat me up on that again. All right, so these guys chimed in already, but here's Bill Dell. What are you doing, bud? What are you doing right now?
Right now, recording a podcast
Yeah.
with some stock trout lovers.
You caught a bunch of fish today, I think.
Yeah, go ahead. Tell us about your stocked fish catching today.
I caught some stockies today. They were, the pellets were floating on top of the water today, so they were able to eat them.
You did fish a lot this weekend, huh? We usually record on Mondays. It's what? Did you fish Saturday and Sunday?
Yeah, Saturday, Sunday, Monday this weekend.
Nice.
It's nice.
Hendricksons? You get into the Hendricksons yet?
Can't tell you that.
Hey now.
Wait now.
Never mind.
The
Let's
right
move on
answer.
I can tell he doesn't want to talk about it.
That was a grievance.
Yep. Hey, hearing of grievances is coming.
Can't wait.
Probably episode 9 of season 15 here. So start marking them down. I already got about 10 listed. Well, I will also say, send in your guest grievances. We did that last year. That was kind of fun, and you guys came up with stuff that we never would have thought of. And I like it. I got Matt Grobe coming in from Bozeman, Montana. Oh, did I spot burn the town?
Oh no. So let's talk. Did you put some Widow's Web on a Hendrickson yet?
I have. Not on a Hendrickson, but I've been using Widow's Web on a number of things.
Any noticeability, like on the water, anything?
Do you want my...
of course.
I like my macrame yarn.
Okay.
I think I like it better because it is crinklier, therefore holds more air in between the crinkles, let's say, or the waves. And I'd say so far, and I probably got 10 days on Widow's Web flies. And I've been using them primarily. But I also, just the last 2 days of fishing and one day of guiding, I was also mixing back in the macrame yarn.
Yep.
Because I wanted to kind of compare, A/B test. I would say that the macrame yarn, while not as visible, but I don't really have a problem seeing white, it does float more. But the trouble with macrame yarn is once it kind of compresses, then it kind of gets almost too crinkly. If you put it in a box and accidentally mash down the fibers, try getting that straightened out again.
Sure.
You can steam it for anybody out there if you do use macrame yarn. You could steam your fly and everything kind of get back to shape. That's always been my biggest trouble with macrame yarn. I'm not going to have that problem with Widow's Web, I'm sure. And I would say like the Widow's Web is the best. I was going to say synthetic, but macrame yarn's also synthetic. What's it made of? What do you think Widow's Web is?
Man, I don't know.
I've fished other stuff like that.
Sure,
and stuff like
so have
that
I.
seems to be the best I've fished.
Yeah, it's like poly yarn, right? Almost, kind of.
Yeah. And it has it definitely has a crinkle to it.
Sure.
A wave to it in a good way.
I always just wonder, I've done the macrame yarn. That's the same stuff as the Dorsey indicator.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm with you, but it does get boogery, that material. And so there's pros and cons, but that's why I wanted your opinion on that, as far as, how it floats, how it rides, how it performs on a post, dry fly. Yeah.
I mean, it's great on the post. It has enough structure. You can use, not even much material if you don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't care about flotation, you care, let's say, more about imitation, then we're all going to use a little bit less post material and a little bit fewer hackles. I sent you one of my parachute Adams, and I had really packed the material into there, right? And I think one of you guys texted back that's going to float. And
did you put any foam on the bodies? Any of the caddis yet?
No, but you and I were texting about that, Matt.
Dell, do you use any foam bodies for caddis?
Nope. Elk hair or go home.
He's better than you, Matt.
No, I think that I'm with, like, from a realistic standpoint, you can't beat that stuff. If you're trying we were talking about suspending a 14 bead head or something like that for, getting long drifts. It's tough to beat foam bodies to suspend
I started
flies.
tying some this season for, intended for brook trout streams, but like a never sink foam body caddis.
Okay, cool.
What's that? How's that built, bud?
With materials. I bet he put some materials on it.
It's almost like a stimulator platform where it's a small foam body with deer or elk hair flared up in the back like an elk hair, but then wrapped with a hackle in the front like a stimulator would have.
Okay.
And then tied off at the eye there.
I think it's the hair. Like there's different quality of hair you can get.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Elk hair.
That fly shop out your way. It was a blue. Is it blue?
Yeah, blue ribbon.
Oh,
yeah.
Like
That's
I want
a good one.
I want to go into that shop and just
Hug them.
buy up about 5 pelts.
Well, what I like about that shop? You go in there and they have caddis pelts. They got stimulator pelts.
Yeah,
they got.
that's cool.
I mean, it's fantastic to go in there, and the length is perfect for humpies or caddis, whatever you're doing. It's super nice to have that breakdown.
Yeah,
so kudos to the guys at Blue Ribbon. They kill it.
I think nature's spirit does that now too. Thank God there's so much more than just hairline, out there now. There's so many. Troutline, does a fantastic job. Whatever. There's a bunch of companies now, or let's say really a few companies who make better dubbings and have better hair selection than we've ever had. I think that's super cool. But you make a good point, Matt. It's like the stuff you want to spin a deer hair head on an articulated streamer is way different than what you want to put on an next caddis or the next elk hair caddis, deer hair elk hair caddis. Yeah, that's really neat to have that breakdown. And to your point, Bill, I think a lot of it has to do with like how long the tips are. Like if you're tying a number 14, then a lot of time, let's say on a poor quality for the job, deer or elk hair, all you're really going to be tying in is tips, and there's no air in those tips, right? But I think what makes it special or makes a good hair for the job of a number 14 is you got a shorter tip, so you do have some like hollowness to the hair fiber, right?
Yeah, and it's like the different the different cuts of hair that come from different parts of an elk or a deer too.
Yeah,
like they're in that's
it's belly or
as cow.
I think that's really kind of like the cheat code. Like once upon a time it just said whatever belly hair or
I know,
but it didn't necessarily correspond. Where now they're kind of making it a little simpler and saying, okay, this is for, if you want to tie a comparadun, this is comparadun hair.
Yeah, and that's a good thing about progress right there, right? We don't like everything about progress, but that's a pretty neat thing. Fly tying materials, man.
You're going to pay for it. That's for sure, too.
And I'll tell you what, people are doing some really cool things with patterns these days. There's a couple guys I follow on Instagram. I'm like, holy cow, that's something I've never seen that, and like, they're doing different things. I don't know if they catch more fish, but I bet a lot of them do. The patterns, I mean.
It's endless.
We good?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a nice little deviation from the topic, guys.
Sorry.
You did start it with your widows.
No, that's good.
All right, so let's move into the topic. With decades of commercial fly tying experience, Fulling Mill understands that to tie the best flies, you need the best materials. So over the past several years, they've worked hard to source and prepare a range of fly tying materials that will elevate your experience at the vise. Fulling Mill's new range includes over 1,400 products that come in a wide variety of color options. In it, you'll find the staples like marabou, bucktail, and rabbit's anchor strips, as well as products like CDC, stripped peacock quills, and 17 ranges of dubbing. New for this season, Fulling Mill has added dry fly foam products of numerous densities, sizes, and colors, as well as their new synthetic peacock, tactical peacock dubbing. All Fulling Mill materials go through a rigorous quality control process, so before they're packaged and shipped out, you can be sure they're up to the highest quality standards. Ask for them at your local dealer or find them online at fullingmill.com. Smith Creek has always been about practical, durable gear, and this season they've added 2 more products to the lineup. Smith Creek's Wade Soft EVA wading belt is soft, flexible, and built to move with you, not against you. It cinches down without pinching and holds your gear steady with a tough Duraflex buckle and accessory clip. And if you're looking for an all-purpose carrying knife, Smith Creek's new Pike Tooth Knife Kit delivers. The Japanese steel blade comes razor sharp right out of the box, precise enough for streamside tasks and tough enough for camp chores. It includes a waterstone, wrist lanyard, and a rugged neoprene sheath that's ready for trail, stream, or camping. So whether you're rigging up or dressing down, Smith Creek's got you covered. Like so many other Smith Creek products, the Wade Soft Wading Belt and the Pike Tooth Knife Kit have found a permanent home in my own fishing kit. Learn more at smithcreek.co. Know your river or know your tactics. What puts more fish in the net? Now, this is Deli's idea. This is sort of Deli's topic. I think the bottom line is what should we focus on first? And let me start by saying, Deli, you remember when you and I were fishing, well, something down your way, and we were having a day. Some moments, the fish were on, but a lot of moments the fish were not. And we were covering water pretty fast. And this might always stick with me. Another Deli word of wisdom here, little gem. He goes, yeah, I don't like to do a lot of tinkering. And here I am trying to cover water, but also like especially what I'd think of as prime spot. I'm like, all right, I'm going to put 3 different looks at them. And I would dead drift this way. We were nymphing mostly because nothing hatched. And this is 2 months ago, a month and a half. And I'm like, okay. I mean, I got to the point where, okay, these fish are not eating very much. I'm going to try like 3 things in each prime spot. And that's kind of something I like to do, and I like to goof around. But that's a good word for it. It's tinkering. And Deli's doing his classic thing where he's kind of just moving up past me, which is cool. And you remember saying that, Bill?
Yeah, I probably did. I think
Yeah.
you tinker way more than I do. But I do get on days where I get in my own head some days, and I'll start to tinker. Like if I start out and don't catch fish, and I'll either some days I'll be like, oh well, I think there should be a fish there, and I'll tinker with it.
Yeah.
And every time I do that, I end up down this like wormhole of like just keep doing it, and I'm like, no, I got to break the trend and just move.
Well, does tinkering ever work for you?
Rarely.
No kidding. I'd say I like to think that half the time I'll go, ooh, that worked. You know what I mean? And then hopefully it works in the next spot too.
Bill, I feel like you have a lot of color preferences, though, based on streams. Like you can only have learned that through a fair amount of tinkering.
Maybe you used to tinker.
Or maybe, this stream prefers tan, or some days they'll be on tan versus gold or brown. Seems like you have a pretty good handle on that.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just like, but you can, how do I say? You can tinker, but it can be in the next run. I guess like the A/B test. I feel like once you've presented a fly to something like a fish, a lot of times you've affected it. And so whatever you do, you do next, it kind of sometimes it discounts it.
Yeah, water type, right? If it's faster, let's say a little bit dirtier water, yeah, and you could get away with more. But man, if it's the lowest, clearest of the season, you've already molested it.
Yeah,
right?
It's over.
Yeah. So before we, dive in too deep here, I did want to, I don't know, give you a chance to. It's your idea. I think it's a good one. You want to lay out your thesis a little bit?
Yeah,
for this topic.
I guess I see, and we're guilty of this, is that the industry seems to be very technical right now. Mm-hmm. Where you can use 8-pound butt section, you can use 6-pound butt section. You've got to do all these different tactics and these different presentation opportunities you have. Yeah, but there's not a lot of discussion, and maybe this is probably a whole other subject as far as like not necessarily sharing river knowledge, but I guess just a way to emphasize the importance of it, because I feel like in my experiences, the river knowledge farly outgrows the ability of tactics to catch fish. And when I mean river knowledge, I mean, let's say you have a good working knowledge of a dozen rivers.
Okay.
Versus if you have a good ability to nymph fish. This is like the discussion point is, at what point does one outweigh the other? Whether our tactics, there are days that tactics are probably a lot more important, but there's other days where river knowledge could be more important. And so just understanding and what goes into, I guess, comparing the two.
I like your point there of like, at one point does one outweigh the other. I think that might be a good summary of the question or the topic itself. At what point does knowing your river become a greater advantage than just having fishing knowledge in terms of success and maybe repetitive success? Because I could think if I went to a new stream, let's say outside of those working 12 or dozen streams that I have that I have a lot of experience on, and I can take my same tactics, and while they may provide a baseline of success, there may be, and likely is, like a secondary level of an experience, fishing experience or success I could have had I known a bit more of the intricacies of that place.
Dom, you and I talked about it not long ago, right? About what we see out on the water as we're guiding, right? And I see people read the water poorly all the time, and often that translates into not understanding their river that they're currently fishing. And these guys, I like what Austin said about baseline tactics, right? I think a lot of individuals have baseline understanding on how to fish, generally speaking. But you put that individual on a new river, and there's so many different variations of rivers out there with different water temperatures and different structure and different hatches. And that's all over the country. You have different environmental features. I think by understanding that river, right, by having spent quality time on it, definitely puts you into a better situation than if you have, you bring the tactical component into it. Right. So I'd lean on the fact that river knowledge is putting more fish in your net than, the tactical piece when you're measuring. I don't know. I don't know what the, above average catching or I guess any catching. Right. But that river knowledge is definitely something that shouldn't be overlooked.
So what do we mean by river knowledge? And I know, Bill, you kind of addressed it, but like, how do you know your river? What do you know about that river, basically?
I don't know. My 2 cents is, first you have to understand at what water level in what part of the river does it fish the best? Mm-hmm. And so that means fishing it top to bottom. And then you have to understand like how the tributaries influence that river. And then you also have, the different seasons and knowing the water type in those different areas, because you may fish a section that is beautiful and it has all these raging rapids, but that may fish good in June, but it may not. You might not even touch a fish in December there because it's a water type thing. And so I don't. And then the last thing is bug life. Like some of these bigger rivers, there are different things hatching in different parts of the river, and even in the same day sometimes.
For sure. And then different stages of those hatches too.
Yeah.
You're going to respawn and trout respawn and go to different parts of the river.
I would always, Dom, have you ever read Dan Shields and his river journals?
Oh yeah, for our local streams.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got them right there on the bookshelf. 3 of them.
I would always, read those in amazement when I would be camping up there. And it would be so neat to understand the river knowledge that, went into creating these books. And it was often, years spent just starting at one spot, then fishing up, like Bill said, to the headwaters. And maybe that was only in a certain amount of time, like in the summer season. And then you'd do the same thing in the fall. Right. And then in the winter, and you really start understanding your waters. And what I'm getting at is when I would fish it, most times it would be in April and May. And I'd think, wow, I only know this river really well during this 4 to 6 week period. And it's alien to me outside of that.
Yeah.
So how long does it take to really get that river knowledge on one particular stream? When we're in a situation like us, where we're surrounded by multiple, let's think of how long when we're talking about river knowledge to truly know the river.
Yeah.
Right.
How long I mean, it takes years and years to understand.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'm still confused by what has happened, on my local stream. We've talked about how the trout have certainly got more selective. Not necessarily sure why, but I think it's mostly angular pressure.
Yeah.
And then how do I respond to that? Austin, you and I have been talking a lot about that.
Right.
But I'm doing better with unweighted flies and split shot quite a bit. No bead heads, different drift, different look to the flies, yes. Anyway, and I got into the tactics right away. But the river itself, well, the trout themselves are changing, and maybe in response to the river too. More often than not, that local river I'm talking about, in the last 5 years, you mostly say, oh, it's pretty low. That's pretty low. It's pretty low for the time of year. We've been in a lot of times, it's almost been in drought conditions. And you can look back at the gauge for the CFS and realize that, oh yeah, it's low for historically low. Not an all-time low, but yeah, it's low right now. Yep, it's low, regardless of the time of the year. And so I'm sure that has something to do with it. So these rivers change. You're going to learn them. How long does it take to learn them? Man, I'm going to say like 20 years. And I don't want to discourage anybody out there, but I think that shouldn't be discouraging. It should be like, oh yeah, this is a lifelong game that I'm into.
Yeah, and there's levels to it as well, right? I mean, river knowledge goes far beyond just knowing where to park and get in.
But that starts there. That's valuable, right?
It does.
Dude,
so maybe
that's
that's where it starts. It's just simply figuring out how to get to it and get in, and then you start collecting this information. And you might, like I have a strong bias of river knowledge in one region and a weak knowledge base in others.
Nice.
So it's sort of what's around you and what you have the ability to put time into. And then it grows year over year over year. So 10 years from now, where like right now, I feel like maybe I have pretty good river knowledge. And I'll look back and think, nah, you didn't know half of it. But it just keeps getting better.
You're only 30.
That's what I mean. I have a lot of opportunity.
Exactly.
And I'm already better than you. It's amazing.
Hey now.
I love it. I'm turning 50 in July.
Wow.
Dom used to say the
20
only
years
thing
better than you.
different between you and I is 20 years. Remember that?
That
That was an encouraging thing you used to tell me. It's like the difference is experience of time.
And hair.
It is.
There you go. You just said, 20 years again. You're exactly right.
That's what I said it takes to learn the river, and there you go.
Yeah, that's good.
Matt, I really like, you brought up Dan Shields and those river journals. When you started talking about that, in my mind, I'm thinking like, now that's river knowledge.
Sure.
In those books that Dan Shields put out, for anybody out there listening, they were on our local streams here. He had at least 2, I think 3 or 4 of them, Matt. Okay.
2 that you can bleep us out. Those were the 2 big ones.
I have, yeah. Maybe that was the only ones. But those books were not full of tactics. He talked about, hey, dry flies this way, nymphs that way, streamers this way, sometimes wet flies. But they were about the river. Those were river, did you call them river journals?
Yeah, river journal.
Yeah. That's what, and I thought they were fantastic. Like you said, I've read each of those, cover to cover 20 times, more than that probably. That's what those were. That's what they are, is a breakdown of what he knew about the river at that time. Not really about the tactics, like, oh, here's how I get a dead drift with a nymph. Here's how I present my streamer the best way. And so I bet, I'm totally guessing here, but I bet if we got Dan Shields in here and said, what's most important, he'd say, oh, yeah, knowing your river. And then give him good tactics, but boy, you got to know the river. Yeah. So I want to tell you about Tajima Direct. They make the best polarized lenses on the market. Tajima gives me perfectly clear vision and more detail with less eye strain, so I see more fish. The process is simple. Take a pair of your sunglasses and send them in to Tajima. In short order, you'll get your frames back with your choice of lens tints that are specifically designed for fly fishing. With both prescription and non-prescription, Tajima's patented lens technology results in the best lenses I've ever worn, including every top brand out there. So I wear polarized lenses all day, every day, on the water. And I've been rotating in Tajima's brown 15 green mirror for average light days and their yellow-green 40 silver mirror for the cloudy low-light days that I love to fish. I can tell you that for me, having Tajima's prescription lenses in the right lens tints has been a game changer. I put my glasses on and I don't think about them again until the end of the trip. Send in your own frames today. Visit tajima-direct.com. That's Tajima direct.com. Upgrade your lenses and see what you've been missing. Since 2006, Yeti has been building products for anglers who fish hard and share an addiction for the woods and the water. Yeti changed the industry with their legendary coolers by featuring rugged but simple designs built to last for generations and stand up to whatever Mother Nature might bring. Yeti now takes that same functional and elegant design to everything in their lineup, from soft coolers to drinkware, bags, and more. The new Yeti Go Box gear cases have become my daily storage solution for a life on the water. Offered in 3 sizes, the Go Boxes are rugged and waterproof at home on a boat or in the back of a pickup. All Yeti Go Boxes offer smart storage solutions with removable cargo trays and dividers. And the Pack Attic is a set of zippered pockets conveniently housed in the interior lid of the 30 and 60 sizes. Lockable, light, and nearly indestructible. I use the 15 size Go Box for camera gear and the 30 size for organizing my reels, fly boxes, leaders, tippet, and everything else that keeps me fishing. The Yeti Loadout Go Boxes are the perfect angler's companion.
In those journals, man, I don't know about you, but they captivated my imagination.
Yes.
So much so about just the depth of the river, the length of the river, the seasons of the river. And I'd always read those books and be like, I need to come back up here in the fall because, things change, right? And the wildlife changes and all the things. And I just would always read those and want to explore more my local rivers.
Right. And you said earlier how you were mostly fishing in April, May, and you knew you were starting to know those rivers in April and May. I mean, we have some anglers around here who are kind of, let's say, diehard anglers, but then I found out that they don't fish in the wintertime.
Sure.
And I'm like, that's fine. Oh, I got more room out there. But I'm like, well, then you're missing a big chunk of the puzzle.
Sure.
And I know that, for example, the way I fish streamers and the way I fish nymphs in the winter is, it's different. And then that really helps me on some, let's say, tough days in the spring and maybe even in the summer. I develop different skills. I'm back to skills, right? I do develop different skills because I fish in the wintertime. For me, that's a big deal. And I think if you really want a complete picture, you want to know your rivers. That river knowledge ought to be, if you can get out there in the winter and really do it. I recognize some of them are frozen over. Anyway, I'd like to get the biggest picture that I can for as many months as I can fish that river and it's open.
A couple points.
Yeah.
Matt, do you think fishing in Pennsylvania and then being forced to relearn the western rivers, do you feel like the knowledge that you had, the stuff that you learned in Pennsylvania helped you better learn those rivers, or was it a detriment because you tried to fish the same way you did on the East Coast?
Nice. That's a great question.
Yeah, that is.
And tactically speaking, I think that I approached the rivers the same way when it comes to, the drifts. Maybe I needed some heavier nymphs, but tactically in general, right? I applied very similar techniques. What I battled with and struggled with is reading the water, right? Is in learning my river and times of year and different species, right? River knowledge was a detriment for me at the beginning. And once I started, and I was going to say, I'm 10 years in and I feel like I'm just getting to the point where I'm really getting comfortable on a few of my local waters just now, 10 years in, right? Yeah. And it took an adjustment to understand, temperature variations, just pure CFS flow, the different fish, whether they're cutthroat, rainbows, brown trout, some easier than others. There's just a lot there, and it took a while. And so river knowledge definitely aided in my increased catching account. I wouldn't say my approach was detrimental. I think the way I read water there and then how I would read water here was a big enough adjustment that I didn't maybe realize it. It took me a while to realize that piece of it, that you got. And like, if you came out, Bill, or when you came, I'd have you'd be like, oh, wow. Like the learning curve improved, right? A lot. Like I'd be able to show people around a lot better.
That's cool.
Yeah. It took a while though, right?
Dude, so long.
Get that comfort level.
So
yeah.
when
It's almost like
and so how many so you say 10 years, how many days a year are you fishing too? Like if you add all that up, like let's say the average guy fishes 20 days a year.
I'm going between 70 and 100.
And so that's a lot of time, like just to understand like what it takes to learn all that stuff.
700 days on the water, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's, and I said, you guys get it because you've distractions. You have multiple rivers that are different, right? And so for you to really like focus on that one river, you got to bypass those other rivers sometimes. And I'm not saying you have to, but like we're spoiled with these distractions. Like, oh,
I know.
Where should I go? Right. And then you maybe that you don't get to learn that one river really well, or it just takes you a long time, right? I'm coming full circle to where it's like, maybe I neglected my home water for the first couple years because maybe it didn't have big fish. And I'm coming back to it like, wow, this river's pretty good. Right? Like, you get it.
Yeah, I talked to my buddy Steve. I was running upstream with my dog and he was coming downstream in the canyon. And he almost always fishes that river that I was running next to and he was walking next to. And he's 15 years older than me. And I mean, it almost stuns me that he has not branched out and fished some of our other favorites. I mean, right? There's some places that he's never even come close to fishing. And we talked about that, 5 years ago. I remember mentioning like, dude, you got to get out. Like, why wouldn't you go fish this one and that one? And my gosh, and the tributary to that. And he said, oh, there's enough to learn here. There's enough to learn right here. You know, and he was basically trying to be an expert for himself, to learn as much as he could, and still is trying to learn as much as he can about that one river. And I'll tell you too, he often fishes the exact same places. For me, that's not my thing. That's like too centralized into one spot. I don't know that I get bored. I just know that there's so much more out there.
Yep.
But boy, he's going to know those parts of that river better than maybe anybody else who fishes.
Right. That's cool though.
What I noticed by fishing many different streams and different waters is that sometimes I'll pick something up on another river and I'm like, oh, in this situation, I caught fish. And then I'll go back and look for that same situation on the river that I fished, 100 times. And I'm like, these fish did the same thing. It's just I needed to look for it. Like sometimes that repetitive nature, you start to form habits and then you have to break away from it.
I know.
I like that.
That's another topic. And Bill, you had this one too about like how'd you put it? Do you remember like how?
Maybe it was how fishing the same thing can stunt your growth.
Oh,
yeah. We should talk about that this season too. So what you gotta have a balance, right? Now, I think all of us here get to fish way more than the average person. I don't care. I mean, it could be the most diehard angler out there, but most guys have a different kind of life, different kind of lifestyle, more kids, different kind of wife, different kind of partner than we do, and also not access to the kinds of waters that we do.
Sure.
Many people have to travel, I don't know, hour and a half, 2.5 hours to get to good trout water. And I hear this all the time. Guys be like, oh man, you're lucky. You're lucky to live where you do. And we certainly are, all of us, where we live. Deli, you travel the furthest, but man, still, if you only want to go 15 minutes, you can still get into some wild trout, right?
Maybe 20 or 30.
All right. He's down there bordering on trout purgatory.
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess in fairness to like so many people out there that are going to be listening and thinking like, well, man, I don't have 20 years. How am I going to learn the river? and I don't have 70 days on the water. And seriously, I'm on the water more than 200 days a year, probably 250. Well, I'm adding guiding and everything else and all the filming and everything. When I go more than 2 days without being on the water, I'm like, whoa, something's wrong. I feel weird.
Right.
So the average person out there who's maybe, fishing a lot, and that's 50 days a year, like 50 days a year, like how can they learn the rivers? It seems like we're saying, well, long term, it's got to be a one day after another thing. Can you learn them faster? Is there a shortcut?
I think fish more of them. I guess more of the same. Like if you find yourself going to the same pool because you've had success there, I feel like success can also stunt your growth, because you're like, oh, well, if I go to that pool at 10 o'clock, the bugs are going to hatch there and I'm going to catch a fish. And, if you physically have the ability to cover more water and see more of it, we've talked about like start at the bottom, fish to the top, or, try a different spot every time. And it's going to improve your success in the future. It may, in the short term, it may reduce some of the amount of fish you catch.
Good point.
But in the long term, it's a bigger commitment and it gives you a bigger picture, because you might go, I don't know, you might stumble into something really special where you're like, oh, well, I fished this, and make yourself, I guess the best thing I could say is make yourself uncomfortable, whether it's fishing new water, whether it's fishing it higher than normal and, higher than normal, but still safe.
Sure. I think it's safe to say you have to experience that to know your river, right? Like if you're not failing, if you're not out there getting stumped, really, you're not really learning, to Bill's point, right? Like, I'm always intrigued at when I think I know a river, or you're coming off of like a great run, great 5 weeks where big drakes or big stoneflies are hatching,
5
and
weeks.
You're doing well.
He's so good. He's 5 weeks to just catch a fish.
Well, I mean, when it's prime, right? I'm just saying when it's prime, when it's good, when the
5
getting's
weeks?
good. And then you show up that one day, right? And you're like, what the hell? What happened? Right? I can't tell you how many times I'm like walking to the stream confident and it's a struggle. And I'm like, well, it's because I don't know this river right now, right at this month, at this time. And it's whether it's downsizing flies and tippet and unweighted flies, right? That's all part of knowing your river. So I would encourage people to, to a certain degree, you got to have those failures and challenges to grow. That's just part of it.
I think, the question to Dom that you asked was, can you learn them faster? And some people may be more apt to pick things up quicker than others, where maybe they recognize something faster than someone else who it takes them 4 times to experience it may. So I don't think there's a shortcut for 20 years, but certainly there's a shortcut in terms of how fast maybe you are able to collect that knowledge and assimilate it and actually draw conclusions that are accurate. I think about this as like a personality, just like you get to know a human being. The longer you know them, the more you understand just the way they react in situations and what they do like and what they don't like, just like a river.
Like when we went to Argentina,
what makes them happy. You know what they don't. What makes them sad. How the fishing's going to be a certain day after a certain amount of rainfall, or vice versa. That type of knowledge is really time based, unless there's somebody standing there next to you telling you.
Well,
which doesn't have the same weight.
I was just gonna say though, if you want to quicken, right? You want to get fast track. To me, that's the fastest track you can get on. Is you're with somebody that knows the river, right?
Yeah, and by all means, they
can download 20 years, into you in a short couple weeks, and that's invaluable. Some of the. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I've done for Austin.
So we've all done it. I mean, he's just siphoning. He's siphoning all of our logic.
I sit at the bar.
He's cherry picking all our knowledge.
Yeah.
Didn't you know I'm the smartest guy in
He
the
offered
room?
to buy Troutbitten.com. And I said,
Started with sloop and I worked my way through.
Oh,
He did.
Yeah, it's
And now
like
I'm here.
He's a
I'm
trout.
download of data.
fooling all of you.
He's a trout-bitten miner.
I'm starting to realize what's been going on for all these years. No,
catching up.
that's a great point, man. I mean, we've all acknowledged many times that we've learned so much from each other and from.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you, I when I go out and man, I can't catch fish for the last 2 or 3 days, whatever it is, and then you guys will say, "Did you try this? Did you try that?" And you always have great like probing, like follow up questions, like, "Hey, Dom, maybe this is why you suck. Try this." If you can find a group of friends like this group here, man, and you're young like Austin, you can really
Really
siphon
siphon.
all that knowledge.
You guys
That's
are
what he's
so
doing.
nice. You let
Yep.
me hang out.
That's what he's doing. But he's about to start having kids.
And
You get dumber when you have kids and you start forgetting things and then you don't go fishing much. One day he'll pick it back up, 15, 18 years from now, he'll be picking it back up. I used to fish. I'm going to get back into it.
We telling his kids stories about when he used to be on a podcast and talk about
I
fishing.
used to be honest. Yeah. People used to say that Austin Dando, he really learned from Dom,
He'll have to go
recognize me.
He'll listen to the podcast again so he can remember what he forgot.
Right.
What did I used to know? Yeah.
Hey, Deli, on a
Good thing I wrote
serious
that
note, semi-serious, you brought up how, you could fish from the mouth to the headwaters. And yes, we have talked about that in other podcasts. We've acknowledged that many of us have done that with our local streams. When I got back to this area, I committed myself to doing that. I've told a story about that before. I think it's a great way to do it. If you do have, I don't care if you have a lot of time or limited time. Like Deli said, don't fish the same spot. Don't go back to that pool and try to stay there for, all morning just because you caught fish there last time. Start at the head of that pool and then keep going up. Next spot. Challenge yourself to fish, I don't know, quarter mile, half mile. Depends on how wide your river is and all that, how many people are there. Challenge yourself to fish, I don't know, maybe a mile of water in a day. Maybe more, way more than that. 2-3 miles of water in a day. Depends, again, on the size of the stream. It just depends on what you want to do, too. How much do you want to learn? And what we're talking about, learning. Like, aren't you guys all curious about what's around the next bend?
Oh, I'm addicted to that.
Right.
I'm not curious. Yeah. I think that's why I keep fishing new rivers that I haven't seen before, because I want
to
find out what I'm missing.
Whether it's after a fishing trip or at a backyard fire, you can bet the Troutbitten crew has a case of New Trail Broken Heels along with us. It's honestly our favorite beer. This hazy IPA is smooth and full-bodied. Hand-selected Citra hops lead to notes of bright clementine and juicy ruby red grapefruit. Broken Heels is a keeper. New Trail beer is proudly brewed in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and delivered cold to your favorite craft beer retailer every week. At New Trail, it's not about being the best angler. It's about getting out there. So enjoy nature's moments and reward yourself for a day well fished with New Trail Broken Heels. It's Troutbitten's favorite beer. Tactical Fly Fisher was founded by Fly Fishing Team USA angler Devin Olson to bring anglers cutting-edge gear and techniques inspired by the World Fly Fishing Championships. Tactical Fly Fisher's goal is to supply you with the latest and best fly fishing gear and to help you learn how to use it through their videos and books. Whether you need flies, fly tying supplies, a new rod or reel, or any other fly fishing equipment, they've got you covered. Check them out at tacticalflyfisher.com and use the code TB15 to get 15% off one order, excluding rods, reels, waders, and boots. Visit tacticalflyfisher.com.
Do you feel like we can like self-educate those fish? We're talking about knowing the river. And if you have 3 days to fish and you fish the same stuff over and over again with the same flies, that you can literally put off that
I know
those fish by yourself. I have friends that do that, and I'm like, well, you can self-educate those fish. Like, you're not going to just expect to bang out the same numbers you did that day using the same flies and the same tactics to the same fish. Like, right? I don't know if that's that's just as common sense to me. I'm like, well, did you fish for him yesterday and catch 52 on a Walt's worm? Because if you did, I don't know if you're going to catch 52 of the same fish on a Walt's worm again.
Yeah, in the same 100 yards.
Sure.
I was fishing with our buddy Bill Ferguson today, and we were working a spot, and there were fish rising, and we had been there for a little while, and there were still fish rising. I go, come on, let's move. And I think he looked at me like, huh? And we were like walking down, and I was like, I don't like to fish. I don't like to keep working the fish because you keep making them smarter. If you go away for a half hour and you find some other fish, then you come back to those fish stop getting used to being fished for, and they start feeding easier. And like we walked downstream, we came back up, and then again, like we caught fish like the same run. So it's the same thing. Like you can't, and that's where maybe that's probably more of a tactic. And it's also because the tactic is, don't overwork the fish, work them for a while if they're rising, and then if you overwork them, you're going to put them down for good. Where if your tactic is to walk downstream and maybe find another pool or something to work some fish.
But you always hear, it's like, it's opposite of what you usually hear, which is don't leave fish.
Right.
To go
find
fish.
You're right. But in a wild trout stream, which is mostly what we're talking about.
There's fish everywhere.
There's freaking fish everywhere. You're not there to find fish.
Yeah. Right.
If it's a good spot, if it looks good, it is good. And even the stuff next to the stuff that looks good is good. They'll give you, the trout per mile or the trout per hectare. There's a bunch of fish in there. It's a Class A wild trout stream, or it's a blue ribbon trout stream for a good reason. Or even if it's a stock stream like we talked about last week, there's fish in there. Fish it, and don't assume that they're just in one. They're not in just one spot. Like, give the fish a little bit of credit. You don't have to. So I think I hear that a lot, Matt. Right? Like, oh, you never leave fish to go find fish. When I'm fishing saltwater, and again, my experience is very limited, I kind of adhere to that principle. Well, I've found a pot of fish, and I'm not leaving here until I stop catching fish.
That's a big pond to fish in, though.
That's a really good point. That's a fantastic way to put it. That's
a lot of moving
right.
targets too.
That's right. That's way different. And Stillwater in general, I think, is way different too. My buddy Greg is, he's got a boat. And he's on this local lake almost every day once the season's in for bass and stuff. And he's always like, you got to find the fish. You got to find the fish. And I'm thinking, that's so different. We used to coach baseball together, and I'd be thinking, that's so different. Like, I'm not finding fish. I'm finding where the fish are feeding, but I know the fish are in there.
Sure.
Different concepts.
So do you guys, let's bring it back to like, how do you get more fish in the net? Right? With those two things we're talking about. And do you think people, oftentimes anglers, they use the excuse of other circumstances to supplement the tactics and the knowledge of the river too much, like it was too high, too windy, too cold, instead of looking in the mirror?
That'd be a good podcast.
And saying, no, man, like I tell people, usually you catch what you deserve, right? Like most
that's
times,
good. Yeah.
90% of the time you catch what you deserve. And look, that bar can be different, right? Like, let's say it's you guys, maybe the numbers have decreased a little bit, but you're catching what you deserve compared to maybe other anglers, right? Based on your techniques, your knowledge, all the things. You can't, I would always say it's either river knowledge or tactics, and then you can bring in the fisherman excuses, like, all the things we think of. But usually you should look at knowledge, like, well, how can I crack the code? If you keep striving for that instead of relying on some weird excuse about Mother Nature or whatever, you'll become a better angler that way.
Yeah, that's a great point.
We always joke as a group after a day that maybe was slower than we'd like it to be. You'd give the report, and then you'd give the reasons as to why.
Oh,
Say,
yeah.
well, so those are my excuses.
Too sunny. Too sunny today.
Too sunny.
But I have friends who are famously
guys
bad
out.
for that.
Yeah.
It's never, it's never their fault, or it's never,
of course not. Yep.
the river's fault. It's the wind conditions, or maybe it is the water temperature, too low, too high, too cold, too warm. If you get it all right, it's just going to be amazing. No, it's not true.
No, it's not true. I think we've given in this 45 minutes or whatever it's been so far, I think we've given a lot of credit to the learning your river, knowing your river side of things.
Yep.
And I said earlier, like, I'm a tactics guy. I told the story about Deli and I fishing there, and I'm tinkering because tinkering works for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, when I was younger and I was learning these rivers, one of the ways I learned these rivers, well, first of all, I seriously did the mouth to the headwaters thing with every one of my favorite rivers multiple times. But even during the course of doing that, I would settle down into some of those spots and I'd say, well, I mean, man, there's fish in there. What else can I do to catch them? So I really am kind of a tactics-focused guy. I was back then, even though I was covering more water. And now I get some I get a lot of enjoyment out of it. Well, I know there's fish in there. And again, like we talked about, Bill, if it's not like, super low water, and I don't really think that I spooked every fish in there by drifting past them a couple times, then I'll get real technical about it. And my buddy Rich used to do that with dry flies. He would set up over one rising trout, and he'd present to them. They wouldn't eat. He'd change patterns a couple times, change angles. Seriously, that was a big thing for him. Change angles a couple times. And he was aiming for a dead drift. And they wouldn't eat. Then he'd smoke half a cigar, change his fly again. Maybe once in a while add a little dropper or something like that. But usually it was just pure dry. And eventually he'd catch that one fish. I always said, like, I don't know if you finally just caught another fish that moved in, or what did you really learn? I don't know. All right, there's a lot to be said there. But the idea that tactics will really put more fish in the net, I think there's a lot of validity to that as well. The older I get, the more I really enjoy that. Like, I know there's fish in there. I'm going to catch them. And I will slow down, really try to refine the tactics, adjust the tactics to say, what else can I change? How can I make this dead drift actually different? Or I throw streamers on and give them a few shots there, or just fish dries or swing wets. I've been swinging wets a little bit more this spring than I have in a long time. You guys, I don't know. What are your thoughts there?
Some of it is confidence, I feel like.
Yeah.
Where you have to have fished enough time and have confidence in your ability to put good drifts in the water. Because if you're trying to fish, more, let's say more water per day, you have to have confidence in your ability to present the fly right in many different situations. That confidence is really a tactic as far as, being able to present stuff and be confident that, okay, I've exacerbated all of the chances I think in this water type, then let me move on.
Mm-hmm.
And then the tactic is knowing when to speed up or slow down.
That's a good point.
In a run based on experience.
I like that.
Yeah, that's, I recently had an experience, Dom, with tactics being better than maybe, or let me say, river knowledge being a detriment in the sense of over the course of 3 springs, right? Go to the same river, same time, and bang them out on the same 2 patterns, right?
Pseudo-Cleon.
Couple years.
He was on the pseudo-Cleon.
And
Studio.
Right?
Studio.
I would go to the river and I wasn't getting them. Like, same time, I'd look back through the calendar, your notes, right? And you're like, what the heck's going on? And when I tinkered with patterns, right? The water temperature's a little colder. They're just not as far along as they've been the last 3 years. So they're still on midges, right? And I just, that simple tinker, getting the flies down in the right water, deeper, little split shot, changed the day. Right. And that knowledge of me over the course of the last 3 years was blinding me to the fact that, look, these rivers change just a little bit every year, right? Hatches happen at different times. Emergences, the bug emergence happens a couple of days before or after a certain date. That can be, when you get on those fringe hatch seasons, that can be big. So in that scenario, right, it was smart for me to tinker and get into some tactical thinking to help promote, a better catching for that particular day.
Nice.
That's a good point, Matt. I think so many things can become a crutch in fishing, whether it be a fly pattern or a leader or a rod or river knowledge. And that's certainly, I could see that happening. I know it's happened for me too, where I'm used to a certain pattern maybe. And when the pattern breaks in a river or fishing condition, and based off previous successes, I think I should obtain a different result. And I'm stubborn, and I try to fight against it and end up no better than had I just changed tactics or gone to dry dropper or done something completely maybe opposite of what I normally would have done. I like that a lot.
Can we all admit that we've seen patterns go through cycles?
Fly patterns?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
I mean, and that's big, man. I've seen it out here where I'm like, man, why is that not working? Right?
I know. Like, come on.
Right?
It's supposed to work.
Right. But you got to stay on that edge, man. Like, I feel like, but I think a lot of folks get standardized with their patterns and tactics and river knowledge, right? Where we're saying a good piece of this knowledge or the tactics piece is to be flexible. Just be open-minded that it might not work.
I think
that can be hard.
It's like you have to self-actualize, like you have to know when it's time to reset and to rediscover stuff. And sometimes it takes a few outings where you're like, oh, this, I should have gotten, I don't know, maybe I'm catching 10 less fish than I did last year or something. And I'm like, I need to change what I'm doing because the river changed.
Yeah, you said a couple times now, Bill, how knowing that itself is a tactic,
It is, yeah.
Yeah. For me, fishing lately, I've been thinking about this a lot. My best days are when I'm in a rhythm. And part of that rhythm is covering water. Let's say I'll move through the secondary water a little faster. And then when I get to the primary stuff, I'll settle down. I'm like, nah, I'm going to catch fish out of here. And I get pretty stubborn about it. And usually I'll catch a fish or two out of those spots, sometimes more. But even if I don't, then I need to be able to go, nope, all right, that's not primary stuff then. Get out of there. And there's something about keeping myself in that rhythm. And part of that rhythm is even, tying quick knots, making the changes quickly. Oops, I put it in a tree. All right, I broke the whole damn thing off. And tying it quickly. Part of that, like I try not to let that mistake even break my rhythm. And of course, I'd rather not have that mistake, but yeah.
I think if you're going to cover a lot of water quickly, you have to be, I don't know, say mentally tough, but like you have to, every run isn't going to work out as you expect it. Yeah. And so you have to say, okay, and not get frustrated, whether it's frustrated because you put it in the tree, whether you broke off or you're not catching fish. You have to stay with whatever plan you have or adapt your plan as you go.
Yeah, nice.
I think about this too, like certain levels of river knowledge are only available to you if your tactics are up to par.
That's where I was gonna,
so I was
gonna talk about. Yeah.
You could spend a lot of time on a river and not work on your tactics and not have a whole lot of success. But you would learn when the hatches are, and you'd learn what the color of the water does when it rains a certain amount, and all that physical or visible stuff. But everything that goes on into putting fish in the net in terms of a fishing tactic, like you have to have some sort of ability, and ideally an improving ability through time to continually build the knowledge base.
Yeah, because if you're not catching fish, you're not necessarily learning a whole lot. Like you said, you're going to learn about, water types and hatch patterns, and we're trying to learn about the fish, right? We're trying to learn about the trout habits. And if you don't, let's say if you don't have average tactics, or hopefully better than average tactics, then you're not really testing anything. You're not going to catch fish, and you're going to feel like you're not learning a whole lot about that water. So you can't neglect tactics, and of course, none of us are saying that. It's certainly a balance between these two things, and your waters are going to be different than ours, and even day to day, I find myself saying, you know what, I'm going to move through and see what happened. We've had a lot of flooding and some high winds, let's say, that really put a lot of new wood into the water. You guys are all seeing that, right?
Yeah.
Matt, you're different out there, but yeah, we're all locally seeing a lot more wood in the water. And so I'm still excited to see what's around the next bend, even on a stream that I've fished over 100 times. Like, what changed up there? I got to go see that. Yeah, but as I'm fishing through, I got to have good technique so that I can see where fish are sitting, how things have changed. So I can, sometimes we're using weight, whether it's the streamer or the nymph, to actually teach us about what the riverbed really is like. We've talked about that, using the nymph or the split shot, whatever, as a probe to actually get you down there and go, wow, that's a lot deeper than I thought it was. And maybe here's how I should approach it the next time. That's learning the river too.
I think one thing I've kind of pigeonholed myself, or my tactics sometimes will, let's say I want a nymph today, or if I want to throw dries today, sometimes that pigeonholes me into fishing a tactic instead of fishing the river.
Yeah.
And so, hey, I want to go out and nymph fish every day, or hey, I want to go out and throw dries. Like, with hatch season, for the most part, started around here, there's the opportunity to do both.
Yeah.
At parts of the day.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's where it's like a combination of river knowledge and tactics, where you're saying, okay, I need to know where the fish are going to rise, and then I have to have the right tactics to present to those fish, versus, hey, I'm going to go out and I'm just going to grab my nymph rod and that's what I'm going to fish. I feel like the industry's gotten very nymph focused with
There's a lot to it, right?
Yeah.
We've talked about that. There's a lot to nymphing. There's more to nymphing than any other tactic, in my opinion. You can do it in more ways, and I think it's more complex than anything else.
Different subject, or different wormhole. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I think the overall theme, though, to what we're saying here is like, or for many of us, it's what drives us to keep going out too, is the idea, the curiosity, the mystery, the unknown, discovering over again, like Deli said, sort of resetting from year to year, recognizing when those things are needed, and then just having that eternal hope that there's something in there, something going on down there or up there that you haven't figured out that's going to be game changing for you in that river or whatever it might be.
Anything else, guys? Can anybody beat Austin's little wrap up there?
I'm not trying.
No, that sounds good. Other than it's left-handed.
Right.
It's left-handed river knowledge.
Left-handed tactics are way different than right-handed tactics.
Take that with a grain of salt.
You can't.
I fished with a lefty today. There's more of them out there. It's a shame.
Oh yeah, you did.
Well, and then if you're going to read the water as a left-hander, you're going to read it differently as a right-hander. That's actually half true.
It is like
for some people. Some people really don't like to cast
I'm valuable.
on their offhand. Yeah.
When I guide people, I would always say, hey, what, are you right-handed or left-handed?
Oh, I know. Me too.
And they're like, oh, well, I have my own rod. I'm like, no, I'm looking for the right section of river to show you.
Yeah, I know. There's left-handed water, right-handed
Well, I
water.
do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I can't tell you how many people will be like, oh, it doesn't matter to me. I get them on the opposite sides. They're like,
yeah, it's bad.
Come on, man. Some people actually cast better left.
Across.
Opposite hand. Yeah, across the body. Yeah. All right, so who wants to read us out? He's got it. Step up.
I got it.
Hey now, I thought you might. All right, do it.
Remember, The Troutbitten Project is a free resource for all anglers. The Troutbitten website hosts over 1,500 articles, videos, and podcasts with endless stories, commentaries, tactics, tips, and more. Find what you like through the top menu and through the search page. Navigate by way of the categories and tags too. Be sure to find the Troutbitten YouTube channel, now featuring the Troutbitten Tip Series, Fly Fishing the Mono Rig, and the Troutbitten Fly Box, all in collaboration with Wilds Media. You'll also find the fish and film videos in the new Riverside series, all in their own playlists on Troutbitten YouTube. Thank you for listening to the Troutbitten Podcast. Please give the show a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leave a comment, because that really helps. Until next time, friends, fish hard, enjoy the day, and find your life on the water.
On the water.
Wow, this river's pretty good.
I know.
Want to find out what I'm missing?
90% of the time, you catch what you deserve.